Welcome, everybody, to Grimwit with Dimwits.
Hi, everybody.
That's Blondie, by the way. And I'm T. And this is the third episode of our Oxbookterfest special.
Jesus, take the wheel.
Not this month, he won't.
No, he won't.
So we have as promised, spooky story for you all. It's pretty interesting. We're going to be covering a lot of things.
It's only spooky because I'm telling it.
It's more spooky because we were there, actually.
This is true.
Yes, we actually saw this stuff. We actually went there. Touch, feel, see, whatever else goes with it. All the senses were stimulated.
Okay, hello.
Fear.
You know we have a rating, right?
I said senses. That's it. Take the wheel, Blondie.
Take the wheel. Okay. Does that make me Jesus?
The closest thing we have to it. I can't talk today. It's a good thing I'm not going first.
Okay. So in sticking with the Halloween-y theme...
Oxbookterfest.
I say Halloween-y because I refuse to say that other thing.
Oxbookterfest.
We wanted to take you on a tour of haunted San Diego, California. Who knew San Diego has a huge haunted history, past and present?
I didn't know that.
Well, you did when we went on our tour.
Well, I didn't know before we went.
I didn't either. T and I went on a tour experiencing firsthand the haunted history for ourselves. We went for my birthday weekend last year. So that was a pretty great weekend. We had some good food. We went on the tour. Then we had massages with fire cupping.
That's right.
Which is another story for another time.
Cup hickeys for a week.
All over your back.
And it was a special weekend. It was Blondie's 100th birthday. I know nobody's surprised.
And we're friends. Why? Oh, that's right. We know too much about each other.
That's right. You really don't have a choice.
The things we get ourselves into.
That's right.
I always say I'm doing my charity work to get into heaven.
It's not going to do you any good. Many others have tried and failed.
Moving on.
Yes, ma'am.
Our first stop will be in the Gaslamp district at the Horton Grand Hotel, which opened in 1886. The Horton Grand Hotel was an elegant, ornate, Victorian structure built by German immigrant Peter Mayhofer. He wanted to replicate the Innsbruck Hotel in Austria. It was constructed by prominent San Diego architects, Comstock and Troch.
Okay, we had a whole conversation about how to pronounce that. She says Troch, I say Troch, but it sounds too much like crotch.
I'm going to turn off her mic right about now. A second hotel was also built in the area, and around the same time, it was known as the Brooklyn Hotel. The Brooklyn Hotel was less formal than the Horton Grand. I guess it's in today's comparison, it would be like the Plaza versus Motel 6.
That's a lot less formal.
The Horton Grand served as host to many famous guests, such as King Kalakaua of Hawaii, President of the United States Benjamin Harrison, Hollywood royalty like George Raft and Lou Costello, sports heroes like Jack Dempsey, Joe Louis, and the beloved Babe Ruth. Wyatt Earp also came to the hotel in 1886 for 7 years.
So hold on. He actually lived in the hotel for 7 years?
For 7 years, he did.
Wow. That's bougie. All right.
Unless he stayed in the Brooklyn Hotel.
That's true. Maybe he went back and forth, to save a little money.
Right.
Who knows?
In the mid-1800s, Roger Whittaker was a guest at the original Horton Grand. Whittaker was a gambler, heavy drinker, and was also known for being a gambling cheat. He owed a lot of money to his creditors, and in an effort to get their money back, they began to threaten him. One night, there was an altercation between Whittaker and the creditor henchman. Whittaker was shot during this altercation. Still being able to run, he raced back to his room at the Horton and hid inside the armoire. But as with his gambling, bad luck continued. The henchman followed him to his room and shot him to death inside the armoire. Whitaker was staying in room 309.
What I'm mad about is that somebody destroyed an armoire. Those things are usually very nice.
Well, he was at the Horton, so yeah, I'm sure it was. In 1970, both hotels were set to be demolished, but were saved. Because the hotels were made of brick, they did not have the infrastructure to be moved. They were dismantled brick by brick, so the windows, doors, door frames, banisters, iron railing, staircase, Victorian ornamentation, and a total of 82,000 bricks were saved and cataloged. In 1986, the hotels were rebuilt into one glorious hotel, and whenever possible, they used the saved materials. The new hotel was built in what was once the heart of San Diego's notorious version of Barbary Coast's Stingery district. The Stingery was the wide open section of the young, raw city, an amalgamation of saloons, gambling halls, opium dens, and brothels, with a few legitimate businesses thrown in. And I said amalgamation. She said I wasn't going to be able to say
I
it.
swore she wouldn't be able to do it, but that's the only word she said right so far, so it's really not a big deal.
You're welcome for that. Ida Bailey was the Stingery's district's most flamboyant and famous madam. She was the owner of the brothel called Canary Cottage.
That's a cute name. It is.
Okay, crazy.
Isn't it adorable? Don't you see like a white building with a little yellow canary on it? It's adorable.
Are you done?
I'm done. Sorry. I had coffee before I came here. I probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, you think. By 1909, due to public outcry spurred by the women of San Diego Purity League to clean up the area, the Stingery district was becoming no more. Today, with elegant distinction, stands the Horton Grand Hotel.
It is a very pretty hotel. I like the ceiling and all the things they did up at the top, you know, with the windows and stuff. It was very ornate.
I like the staircase.
Yeah. It had some very, very distinct, what am I trying to say?
Characteristics.
Okay. It had some very, very distinct characteristics. Thank you. That never happens.
Right? Even after the rebuild, the ghosts from the hotel's past seem to have stayed on, which many people believe makes the Horton Grand one of the most haunted hotels in San Diego. Many have stayed in room 309 and have had a variety of experiences which they believe is the ghost of Roger Whitaker. Guests have woken up in the middle of the night to their beds shaking or the armoire's doors swinging open. We know about moving doors, don't we, Dee?
Yes, we do, only all too well.
Lights have been turned off and on, and objects were moved independently around the room. Other guests have experienced the room inexplicably becoming warm and can't be cooled down. Hotel guests have heard sounds from someone playing cards inside the room, and on a freshly made bed, they found the indentation of a person lying down.
Hopefully it's not a memory foam mattress. Sorry, no more coffee.
Please. Also, a guest saw what she thought was a gentleman in the hallway and asked where the ice machine was, only to see him vanish. Ida Bailey has also been spotted making an appearance at the Horton. She has appeared to guests in various forms, sometimes as a floating white mist, other times as a cold chill that passes through their bodies. Ida hasn't been particularly scary. Those who have felt her presence report it was more of a warm, friendly feeling.
So let me ask you this. If she's appeared as a floating white mist and cold chill, how do they know who it is?
She introduced herself.
Hello, talking mist. That's not weird.
I have no idea.
I'm just wondering if like those things took like a form of her face or body, or I don't even know how you could tell.
I don't know.
Okay, gotcha.
I'd like to think I'd be brave enough to stay in room 309, but I have a feeling the first sight of a shaking bed or things flickering off and on, I'd be out of there. But on the flip side of that, I do love a good game of Texas Hold'em. As we travel across the street, still in the Gaslamp district, we come to the Davis Horton House, which was built in 1850. It was formerly known as the William Heath Davis House. It was a salt box-style structure shipped from Portland, Maine. A salt box structure resembles a wooden-lidded box in which salt was once kept. The structure has just one story in the back and 2 stories in the front. In 1873, after the house had been moved to 11th and K Streets, it was purchased by Anna Shepper. Anna had contracted with San Diego County to run the house as a county hospital for the sick and indigent, where she earned $1 per day per patient. By the end of 1873, 3 patients had died in the house. There were patients in every room of the house, and at one point the house was overflowing with 19 patients. In the living room alone, the beds were lined up side by side, and during a tuberculosis outbreak, the patients would start at the bed closest to the front door, and as they got sicker, they would be rolled from bed to bed to make room for new patients.
I tell you, when we were there and our guide was telling us this story really stuck in my head. I can only imagine you walk through the door, you get placed in the first bed, and over time, probably not a long time, you get rolled to the next roll until you roll out the door dead. That just seems so cold to me. I couldn't understand it. Nobody was living there. Nobody was expected to live.
No,
they
not at
died.
that time.
I don't think I'd even want to start. I think I'd be like, just kill me now. I'm not going to roll out the door. Don't waste my time.
Roll in the front door, roll out the back.
Let's skip this part. I don't want to be rolling on other people's nasty beds. I'll just take me right now. Oh yeah, the whole thing was really disturbing.
The house had several owners throughout the years and was moved a total of 2 times to its current location on Island Avenue. It serves as the Gaslamp Museum. The David Horton House does have a haunted past with paranormal sightings by visitors as well as employees. The most interesting one is a Victorian woman seen at the top of the stairs. Items from tables have been moved or end up on the floor by random forces. Breezes blow through rooms where there is no breeze. Lights flicker off and on, or lights that were turned off at night when the museum closed are on when they open in the morning. Ropes that have been placed on tops of doorways at closing have been found off the doorway hooks in the morning. The cutest thing is that visitors have often told the museum staff that they saw a cat in one of the rooms. When they approached it, it ran out and simply disappeared. Meowing has also been heard, but when looking for where the sound is coming from, there is nothing there. A cat's meow has also been captured on an EVP, an electronic voice phenomenon. As I mentioned earlier, objects from the tables that have ended up on the floor is believed it was the cat.
A cat ghost? A paranormal pussy? You're going to take that out.
I'm so not taking that out.
Yes, you are. Blondie, don't say that.
Right. They already know. While touring, the guide told us that if we took a picture of our reflections in the living room mirror, that when we looked at the picture, there might be a ghostly photobomber in the background. But apparently, they were off that day.
I was a little bummed.
I was too.
It reminded me of like the Haunted Mansion when you driving at the end and the little ghost. I was waiting for the little green guy to come on our shoulders.
You start dancing in your lap.
Be like boom, 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 but it didn't happen.
A little lap dance. While I was in the living room, specifically, I started to feel queasy and my stomach felt like when you're on a roller coaster and it drops, your stomach is light and almost in your throat. That's what it felt like. I just didn't feel well pretty much the whole tour after the living room. But once we went outside, the feeling was gone.
That was very bizarre. It hit you hard.
While we were still in there, I was taking a video of the staircase. And after I looked at it, there was a sphere that was floating in and out. It like moved and then it disappeared a little bit and then came back.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to post that because it was pretty interesting.
I kind of had to convince you that was really odd because you kept saying, no, maybe it was a reflection. But we looked all around to see if there could have been anything reflecting that would bounce around like that. And there could not have been. No. So whatever that was, it was just for you because I took a picture too and I didn't get nothing. I was a little disappointed.
It was the same person that gave me that queasy feeling.
Right? They were chasing you. Scary.
Our next stop is just outside downtown at Villa Montezuma.
Excuse me. Villa Montezuma? You're in SoCal. You need to Mexican it up a little bit, okay? Villa Montezuma. Okay, that almost sounded Asian.
At Villa Montezuma,
I got a little carried away on that one.
this 2-story Victorian mansion was built on a hill in 1887 by Jesse Shepherd. The mansion has a tower room complete with an arabesque dome, panoramic views of San Diego to Point Loma, and south to Mexico. It has beautiful wood floors, ornate woodworking on the walls and ceilings, with stained glass windows and gargoyles. In the room where concerts were performed for guests, the windows have stained glass faces of Beethoven, Mozart, Raphael, and Rubens. Also an extensive window devoted to Sappho, the classic Greek lyric poet, and 4 windows representing the 4 seasons. In the drawing room, you can see more stained glass featuring Shakespeare, Goethe, and Cornell. Okay, now I'm done with the real estate description.
But let me tell you, it was a gorgeous home. That stained glass made the whole house. It was amazing.
And it was strange to see these little circular stained glass of these artists.
Exactly. Shepherd was very specific about putting those people into that stained glass. It was kind of odd.
That's what he wanted.
I know, a little obsessive.
Opera singer, musician, composer, author, and spiritualist, Jesse Shepherd had a vision of what his mansion would look like and employed the architectural firm of Comstock and Troch.
Troch.
Does that sound familiar? I know her annoying follow-up did. There were rumors of secret passages running throughout the mansion, as well as concealed spaces behind some ornate fireplaces. Jesse Shepherd had connections in the spiritual community, which made him become very popular with spiritualists. He would hold seances and recitals in his home, believing he could channel powerful spirits. People would say he sounded like a whole orchestra while playing, even though he played alone. By using his voice, Shepherd could summon entities to help him create on his piano. During the seances, he called on the spirits of Chopin and Mozart. One inhabited his right hand, while the other inhabited his left. Shepherd lived in a very affluent area, and his seances were frowned upon. So in 1889, he moved to Europe. Even though the mansion is a crown jewel of Victorian architecture, it comes with a tragic history. One of Shepherd's servants, who was tormented by the death of his wife, ended up committing suicide by hanging himself in the mansion's tower. It was also said that the mansion was cursed and that anyone who lived there would not be successful, which caused it to go through multiple owners. Today, visitors say they feel a strong presence in the room where Jesse Shepherd called up his spirits. Many believe that he has returned to the place where he felt most alive and continues to commune with the masters. There's also reports that they have heard piano music playing at the dead of night, even though nobody is actually playing. A sad, mournful apparition has also been seen peering through the window of the tower and is believed to be the servant. This entity found that suicide doesn't solve anything, so he continues to linger and peek at the life he had given up. Didn't know this was possible, but people on tours have reported seeing the beard on Peter Paul Rubens, who was an artist, slowly graying over time. And I'm not sure what is in one of the corners of the house, but plants refuse to grow there. I'd actually like to find out what's in that corner of the house, because I'd like to kill some weeds around here.
Can we put it on our butts, too?
You're asking way too much of the spirits.
Sorry, nothing's that powerful.
Let's head downtown to America's most haunted house, the Whaley House. The U.S. Department of Commerce has listed the Whaley House as an authentic haunted house. This house is so famous, they even made a horror movie about it in 2012 called The Haunting of the Whaley House. Of course, Hollywood zhuzhed it up scary-wise for effect. A little bit of the Whaley family history. Thomas Whaley was born in New York in 1823. He was well educated, receiving an education from Washington University. Once he finished school, he traveled for 2 years in Europe. I always wanted to do that after college, travel to Europe. That seems to be a thing.
It was a thing, the whole backpacking through Europe, but nobody has any money when they do that. I prefer to go now with a little bit of cash in our hands.
More glamorous.
Right?
After his European adventure, he boarded a ship heading for California. He reached San Francisco in July 1849. By summer of 1851, Thomas had invested in a goods trading business with a group of partners. His partners headed to San Diego, with Thomas following a few months later. Once there, he bought an interest in a general store and began setting up his life in San Diego. In 1853, Thomas went to New York, where he met and married on August 14th his wife, Miss Anna Laney, who is of French descent. After their honeymoon, they traveled back to San Diego.
These people travel a lot when traveling was really hard to do.
It was all by ships.
It's crazy.
Well, of course, no. I guess if they're going to go from San Diego to New York, that'd probably been a train.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's all by land. Duh.
Duh.
See, I'm just agreeing with you. I'm just being like, oh, that makes sense. We'll drive to Hawaii after that.
Okay.
Sorry. Too much coffee.
She's not sorry.
No, I'm not.
In 1855, Thomas Whaley purchased a plot of land to build his home and business on. The land was at one time a graveyard and also had gallows constructed on it. There was a man named Yankee Jim Robinson who was hung at these very gallows in 1852 for stealing a boat. Apparently, he wanted to go to New York.
That was the fastest way.
Right. Yankee Jim was tall and thin, and when the wagon pulled away, he swung back and forth like a pendulum. Usually, when someone is hung, the wagon pulls away and the person's neck breaks from the weight of their body, but Jim slowly choked to death. Because of this agonizing death, it is believed that Yankee Jim haunts the Whaley house. Thomas actually witnessed the hanging of Yankee Jim, and despite others telling him not to, he bought the land anyway, which would prove to be cursed. Does anyone see a problem here? Anyone who has seen a haunted house movie, aren't the ghosts haunting as a result of being disrespected, generally from the house or from the land that it was built on?
Most of the time.
I mean, that's what I always see, generally.
Yeah, that seems to be the way they go.
Well, you know, Hollywood is all-knowing.
I mean, it makes sense to me. If I'm dead and having a great time and people come along and start pissing me off, yeah, I'm going to do some stuff.
Start building on top of your grave.
I know. I'd be like, nope.
By 1856, besides having his general store, Thomas began working in brickmaking. These were the first burnt bricks made in San Diego. The Whaley house is constructed of bricks that were made at Whaley's kiln, and the walls were finished in plaster made from ground seashells.
That sounds really pretty. I don't know if it was pretty, but it sounds pretty.
Yes, I would love to see that. We will go see that.
It'd be like a whole wall of mother of pearl. I mean, isn't that what it sounds like?
Okay.
Am I wrong? That's what's inside? Well, maybe not all the seashells, huh? Okay, never mind.
You should see the look I'm giving her right now.
Because I'm like, oh yeah, they're not all rainbowy on the inside. Okay. My bad.
You digress. I continue. The house is an example of mid-19th century Greek revival. Not only was the Whaley house the residence and the general store of the Whaley family, but during its time it served as a courthouse, a theater, meeting rooms, and record storage for the County Board of Supervisors. Shortly after moving into the newly constructed brick home, Thomas Whaley started feeling as if something was wrong. He would hear footsteps walking through the house that he knew couldn't be made by his family. He ultimately figured that they were footsteps of the spirit of Yankee Jim haunting the residence. Thomas and Anna had 3 children, Francis, Thomas Jr., and Anna Amelia. The curse of the home continued when tragically Thomas Jr. died in an upstairs bedroom of scarlet fever in 1858. He was only 18 months old. Visitors to the house claimed to hear a baby crying even today. That very same year, the Whaley's wooden general store was destroyed by fire. It was thought to possibly be arson. Trying to start anew, in 1859, the Whaley family moved to San Francisco. While there, they had 3 more children, George, Violet, and Corinne Lillian. After spending 7 years in San Francisco and surviving through an earthquake, they decided to return to San Diego with the hopes the curse would be gone. Several years after their return, Violet Whaley married a man named George Bertolacci. The wedding and festivities took place at the house. As it turns out, George was a con man, It was only after Violet's dowry. George left Violet divorced and depressed. She was feeling unloved and unwanted, no longer her joyful self, playing her music or enjoying life. So one morning, in her grief, she had taken her father's pistol and shot herself in the outhouse. Her father had been looking for her, heard the shot, and found her bleeding to death.
Oh my gosh.
He brought her into the house, where she died 15 minutes later. She passed on August 18, 1885, at age 22 years old. She left a note on the back porch that was a passage from Bridge of Sighs, a poem by Thomas Hood. It read, "Mad from life's history, swift to death's mystery, glad to be hurled anywhere, anywhere out of this world."
That is so tragic and so pretty at the same time. No, it really is. I'm talking about the poem, not what happened to her.
Thank you for that clarification.
Let me clarify.
Violet is still a presence at the family home. She's been seen crying in the outhouse or on the second floor of the house. This is where she would spend most of her time in solitude after her divorce. After Violet's death in 1885, the family moved to a house Thomas had built on State Street in San Diego. Around 1910, Francis, or Frank Whaley, started restoring the Whaley house, which was completed by 1912. Anna Whaley, Lily, and George moved back into the house with Frank Whaley. They stated, quote, "The house was calling to them again," end quote. Thomas Whaley Sr. died in December 1890 at the State Street home in San Diego at the age of 67. Anna Whaley died in February 1913 at the Whaley house at the age of 80. Anna Amelia Whaley, their daughter, died in December 1905 at the age of 47 in Modesto, California. Frank Whaley, their son, died in 1914, just a year after his mother's passing at the Whaley house. He suffered from rheumatism. He was 59 years old. George Whaley, another son, died in 1928 at the age of 67. Corinne Lillian Whaley, another daughter, died on September 14, 1953, at a Lemon Grove rest home, 10 days after she turned 89.
Wow.
The Whaley house is now a museum, hosted tons of visitors a year. During tours through the house, there have been reports, sightings, and just overall feels. There have been ghost sightings in parts of the house of a man that matches Yankee Jim's description. In the courthouse, there was a figure of a very sad woman sitting alone, crying. While walking through the house, guests have had the feeling of melancholy, a feeling of not being at ease, or having dizzy spells until they leave the house. Plus that all too familiar feeling of being watched as they walk around. In 2011, after the retirement of a police officer, he had made a statement that one night while on duty, he was approached by a woman that had been crying. He asked her if she was okay. The woman turned around and smiled. When he shined his flashlight on her, she vanished right in front of his eyes. I'm guessing that's not something that he really wanted to say while he was still employed.
And isn't it sad that we have to be intimidated by not saying what we see as a person who's also not seen anything, but knowing there's something there? Like, we don't want to be labeled as crazy, but if you see it or feel it or hear it, we should be able to say it.
I agree, but you're right. It's perception.
It is perception, you know, and I get it. I probably wouldn't be so open-minded if I hadn't experienced it myself, but it's sad that people have to feel that way. We should be able to report these things right on the spot and be like, this is happening.
No, I agree, but I understand why he didn't.
Oh, me too.
Especially being law enforcement.
Yeah, I get it.
From the music room of the house, when no one was there, music and laughter were heard. There's also a particular lamp in the music room that has crystals hanging from it. And without anyone in the room, a few of the crystals would start to sway, while the others on the same lamp stayed still.
That's weird. Sorry. That's weird.
This experience struck a chord with me. Visitors have all of a sudden experienced the smell of a cigar, which Thomas used to smoke, and the smell of perfume, and they would go away just as quickly as they came. I say this strikes a chord because twice in my life I've experienced scents of people that have passed. The first time I was driving to work, alone in my car, completely caught off guard. I could smell my mother, who passed away 5 years earlier. She always had this very distinct, lovely scent, a cross between her lotions or perfume and just her.
Your mom always smelled classy. She did. She really did.
That's a very distinct word to describe a smell.
Well, it's because there is really no description for what it smelled like. Sometimes she smelled like different things, but she just always smelled very good. She smelled high end. Let's put it that way.
She was bougie.
She was a little bougie.
The second incident, I was watching TV one night. All the windows and doors were closed when all of a sudden there was a slight breeze and I could smell the aroma of a friend of mine that had passed. I turned to look around to see what was going on, and there was nothing. Everyone in the house was still watching TV like nothing had happened. Needless to say, we're going to have to go back to San Diego and actually go inside the Whaley house.
Right.
Even though we didn't tour this, I found the Fazé Rug or Miramar Tunnel pretty intriguing. First, Fazé Rug is a famous YouTuber and one of the first to explore and vlog the tunnel. He got over 1 million hits. Second, there seems to be some confusion as to how long the tunnel actually is, although I'm sure builders know it's estimated to be about 20 miles long. It is also known as the Graffiti Tunnel. There is graffiti at all of the entrances. Some of it is pretty intense. The tunnels made our San Diego Most Haunted episode because there are several stories of the tunnel being haunted. Some say myths, some say urban legends, and some say the stories are true. In the tunnel, explorers have heard a little girl whisper in their ear or calling out to her mother. There are 2 different stories of the little girls and the possibility of their spirits haunting the tunnel. The first story is of a girl being hit and killed by a drunk driver above the tunnel. The other story is a true story that happened in 2016. 2 girls, one 12 years old and one 10 years old, were walking along above the tunnel when a car lost control and came up on the sidewalk, drove 100 feet before striking them. The woman was texting. This is where you put your PSA announcement in.
Mm-hmm.
The 12-year-old was injured and fortunately survived, but the 10-year-old had severe head trauma and passed away 3 days later. Why are you shaking your head?
Because I'm mad that the girls were hit.
I can see in my peripheral vision she's shaking. What did I say? What did I say?
I'm reacting without saying anything. Sorry.
It's okay. Speculation is that one of these stories may be the little girl's spirit in the tunnel. Besides visitors hearing the little girl, they also hear a woman screaming. Another tale is associated with a couple involved in a crash in which the boyfriend survived, but the girlfriend unfortunately died. There are also stories that the tunnels were used as sacrificial ground by members of some sort of cult. No matter whether myth or fact, watching the videos of people visiting the tunnels, which always seems to be at night,
Why is that?
is terrifying.
That's their own fault. Go at noon.
One group of guys that I had watched were walking through looking at the manholes. When one of them moved the camera up to show drips coming from above, all of a sudden he screams, "It smells like poop!" Okay, I'm sorry, but I don't care how bad you want that shot. I am not going to stand under some unknown drips peppering me in a sewer pipe only to realize it's raining doo-doo.
That's so disgusting. He got a shot all right, not the shot he was expecting.
And honestly, all of the videos that I did watch of this, they were men.
But of course. And why do you not smell it until the very last second? Women would have smelled that 3 rooms down.
Women would have smelled it before they went in and went,
Thank
hell
you.
no.
Like, yeah, we're not doing this.
No.
It smells like it's raining poop in there. That's right. We're very specific.
That's right. As it should be, our last stop is a cemetery. El Campo Santo Cemetery is the second oldest in San Diego, with burials from 1849 to 1880. During the period of Old Town declining, the cemetery was abandoned and the chapel was destroyed by fire. Over time, San Diego began to grow. The need for roads became more paramount to expansion. In the cemetery, several graves were removed and relocated, but not all of them. In 1889, a streetcar line was built that went right through the cemetery, and over time, a modern road was laid paving right over the graves, leaving their souls trapped. What did we talk about earlier about disrespecting the deceased? I'd have to say this is a great example. The remaining portion of the cemetery was restored in 1933 by the San Diego Historical Society using pictures and descriptions that were preserved. There were several petitions demanding that the grave sites that were buried under the streets and sidewalk be acknowledged. So originally they painted white crosses over the sites, but now they have brass medallions that say grave site. Today there are 477 bodies still buried at El Campo Santo.
Our tour guide explained was that there were grave sites under our feet and we could see the little brass medallions. I felt like I was disrespecting them just by walking on the sidewalk.
Right? After all the disrespect and upheaval, the spirits have rebelled. Remember Yankee Jim Robinson? He is buried at El Campo Santo Cemetery. I remember from our tour that Yankee Jim was 6'4", and when they were digging his grave, besides digging 6 feet deep, they also had to dig 6'4" long. So they dug down, but not as long as was needed. So when he was buried, they kind of folded him. I'm sure he's pretty pissed, rightfully so. Apparitions dressed in period clothes have been seen floating above the graves. I'm pretty sure that one of them is Yankee Jim trying to stretch his legs. An Indian or Hispanic man dressed in 19th century clothing and a woman has also been seen floating as well. Extremely cold spots have been felt in the cemetery. Flashes of lights and floating orbs have been reported. Don't park your car in front of the cemetery or over the gravesite markers. People who have done this have had their car alarms go off without no one around, or their cars just won't start.
That's more than a coincidence.
Yeah. Business owners and residents in the area have witnessed unusual power outages, as well as lights and appliances randomly turning off and on. I'd say the spirits just aren't letting it go.
Yep.
I had no idea before we went on the tour how interesting and haunted San Diego actually was. On top of that, the old town restaurants and bars are definitely a plus. My takeaway from all of this is respect one another while alive, and unless you want to be tormented by spirits, respect them once they're gone.
I completely agree. Thank you for the story.
I'm making a face at her.
Have fun, take care, and let your imaginations run wild. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We just want to thank you all for sharing your time with us. And if you'd like to send in your creepy little grim bits, we would love to hear your personal stories, interests, and suggestions. Please email them to grimwitwithdimwits@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at grimwitwithdimwits, Twitter at grimwitwithdimwits, and Facebook, Grimwit with Dimwits. Join us every Monday for new episodes, and feel free to share us with your grim-loving friends.
We would really appreciate if you would take a minute to rate and review. 5-star ratings go a long way and would really help us out. Until then, we would love it if you'd come back next week to delve with us into the strange and unusual things we just can't wrap our skulls around.